Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that changed my life. Fear is not your enemy. It's your indicator. Fear is the signal that you're standing at the edge of your greatness. It's the voice that gets louder the closer you are to something life-changing. But here's the catch. Fear doesn't show up to stop you. It shows up to test you. It's asking, do you really want what you say you want? A C. Too many people let fear run their lives. They let fear decide when they speak, when they try, when they dream, and when they quit. But you weren't built to be a prisoner to fear. You were built to fight through it. To stare it in the face and say, not today. You won't have my future. You won't steal my purpose. You won't bury my greatness. Fear will dress itself up in logic. It will say, you're not ready. It will whisper, you could fail. It will shout, what if they laugh at you? But you must shout louder. You must declare with everything inside you, I'm not here to please fear. I'm here to defeat it. Listen to me. Every dream you've ever had is on the other side of that fear. Every ounce of greatness within you is being held hostage by that lie that says you're not enough. That voice. That's not your truth. That's your past talking. That's your pain talking. That's the residue of failure, shame, and doubt speaking louder than your faith. But today, I dare you to raise your voice higher than your fear. There will be moments when your knees are shaking, your heart is pounding, and your mind is screaming for you to back down. That's the moment of truth. That's the battlefield. And if you choose to keep walking, even if you're trembling, you win. You don't have to be fearless to be powerful. You just have to be brave enough to act while you're still afraid. You've got to stop waiting for the fear to disappear. It's not going anywhere, but you are. You're going places, you're becoming someone. You're rising into a new version of yourself, and that version doesn't back down. That version shows up even scared. That version pushes forward even unsure. That version says, fear may ride with me, but it doesn't drive me. There's something in you that fear can't touch, your will, your fire, your faith. When life pushes, you push harder. When fear shows up, you stand taller. You weren't given this dream by accident. You weren't chosen by mistake. You've got something in you that fear can't destroy purpose. And when you live on purpose, fear loses its grip. Let me remind you, you've already survived more than you thought you could. You've already fought battles that fear told you would break you. And look at you. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still rising. And if you could overcome that, you can overcome this. Don't let the fear of failure stop you from building the life you deserve. So the next time fear shows up, you smile and say, you just confirmed I'm going in the right direction. You lace up your boots, square your shoulders, and you fight through fear. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Not because you're fearless, but because you're faithful. And faith is always stronger than fear. Ladies and gentlemen, remember this: courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else is more important. And your dream, your calling, your legacy, it's more important. Fight through fear like your life depends on it, because it does. Fear is a liar. It whispers in your ear that you're not ready, not good enough, not strong enough, and it magnifies every possible failure while minimizing every ounce of potential inside you. Fear is that invisible wall between where you are and where you were meant to be. It shows up right when you're about to do something bold, something courageous, something different. And let me tell you something, every time fear speaks, it's lying to you. Now you might ask, why does fear lie? Because fear was never meant to guide you, it was meant to test you. Fear is that challenge before the breakthrough. It's the gatekeeper to your greatness. It shows up dressed like truth, but it's just insecurity wearing a disguise. You hear fear say, you'll embarrass yourself, and you start to hesitate. You hear, they'll laugh at you, and you pull back. But I want you to catch this. Fear is loudest when your destiny is closest. When you're just inches away from the life you've been dreaming about, fear comes roaring in, trying to scare you into playing small. Some people spend their whole lives letting fear run the show. They've built a house inside the comfort zone and hung a "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door. But nothing grows there. Nothing changes there. Nothing lives there. The comfort zone is a beautiful place until you realize it's a graveyard for dreams. You see, fear wants you to survive, but your spirit wants you to thrive. That tension you feel, that's the battle between who you are and who you were meant to be. I remember when I first stood in front of a crowd to speak. My knees were knocking, my voice was shaky. Fear was screaming in my head, "You're not good enough. They won't listen, you're gonna fail." But deep down, something stronger than fear said, "Speak anyway." And I did. Not because I wasn't afraid, but because I refused to let fear have the final word. That's what you have to do. When fear says, stand up. When fear says, be quiet, you speak. When fear says, you can't, you do it anyway. The more you challenge fear, the quieter it becomes. You don't eliminate fear by hiding. You eliminate fear by acting. Think of the most powerful people, the most successful leaders, the world changers. Do you really think they didn't feel fear? Of course they did. But they made a decision, a bold, life-altering decision, to move in spite of fear. They didn't wait for the fear to leave the room. They carried it with them like baggage they refused to open. That's what separates average from extraordinary. That's what separates dreamers from doers. You've got to stop negotiating with fear. Fear wants too much. It wants your time, your peace, your opportunities, your future, and it gives nothing in return. It's a bad deal. It's a toxic relationship. You've got to break up with fear. You've got to change the locks on your mind and say, you no longer live here. This house is under new management. So the next time fear shows up, and it will, you greet it like an old opponent. You not acknowledge it, but you don't give it power. Because the truth is, if you're scared, it means you're stretching. If you're scared, it means you're growing. If you're scared, it means you're doing something worth doing. Let fear be the signpost, not the roadblock. Let it signal that you're stepping into the unfamiliar, into the unknown, into the next level. Because everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. That's not just a motivational phrase. That's a fact. Look back at your life. Every time you achieved something great, didn't fear try to stop you first? And every time you pushed through, didn't you come out stronger? You have everything you need to win. Fear might show up uninvited, but it doesn't get to take the wheel. You are the driver. You set the destination, and if fear tries to ride along, let it, but make it sit in the back seat, and don't you ever let it touch the steering wheel again. Fear does not leave quietly. It has to be confronted. It has to be faced down. Most people don't fail because they lack talent, opportunity, or potential. No, most people fail because they never confronted the fear that held them hostage. And here's the truth, until you face it, you can't fix it. You can't conquer what you're too afraid to confront. Fear grows in silence. It thrives in secrecy. The moment you look it in the eye and call it by name, it starts to lose its grip on you. There are people walking through life like ghosts, alive, but not really living. They've been haunted by a fear they never faced. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of looking foolish, fear of success. Yes, some folks are even afraid of succeeding because deep down they believe they don't deserve it. That fear has wrapped itself around their dreams like a vine, choking the life out of every hope and every possibility. But listen, you don't overcome fear by ignoring it. You overcome fear by understanding it and standing up to it. You've got to drag that fear out of the shadows and bring it into the light. You've got to look at it not as a monster, but as a message. What is your fear trying to protect you from? Pain, loss, discomfort. Fear always presents itself as protection. But here's the twist. It ends up protecting you from the very life you were born to live. You've got to say to fear, I see you. I know you, but I don't serve you anymore. When you stop pretending fear doesn't exist and start confronting it, that's when things shift. That's when you begin to reclaim your power. Because fear is a bully, and bullies back down when they're called out. The moment you stop running from it and say, not today, fear starts to retreat. The greatest breakthroughs in your life will happen right after the greatest resistance. That resistance is fear, showing up to test how badly you want what you say you want. It's easy to say, I want to start a business. I want to change my life. I want to speak, write, build, create. But fear shows up with a clipboard and asks, do you really? Or are you just talking? And here's something most people don't realize. Fear never goes away completely. You don't outgrow fear, you out-train it. You build the muscle to act in spite of it. That's what courage is. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision that something else is more important than your fear. And that something else is your vision, your calling, your future. You might fail. Yeah. You might get laughed at. But so what? Who hasn't? You will survive it. You will learn from it. And you'll come out wiser, stronger, more confident. Every time you confront your fear, you gather evidence that you are stronger than what scares you. Every time you face it, you take back ground in your life that fear tried to claim. And let's not forget, your life is not just about you. Somebody needs you to confront your fear so they can find the courage to confront theirs. Somebody's breakthrough is on the other side of your boldness. When you face fear and overcome it, you don't just free yourself, you lead others to freedom. You've got to become a fear conqueror, a giant slayer. Not just once, but every time it rears its head. Don't wait until you're not afraid. Take action now. Speak up now. Move forward now. Your destiny depends on it, because if fear controls your decisions, it controls your life. Today, this moment is a chance to turn the tables. Stand up, look fear in the eye and say, you've had your time. You had your say. But you don't get to write the next chapter, I do. That's the beginning of your freedom. That's how you take your power back. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. Fear thrives in stillness. It grows in your hesitation, in your indecision, and in your comfort zone. The longer you stand still, the louder fear gets. The longer you wait to take that leap, the more you feed your doubt. That's why the best remedy for fear is movement, forward motion, relentless action. Because when you move, you interrupt the fear. You disrupt the lie that says you're not ready, not worthy, not good enough. See, fear whispers, what if you fail? Action shouts, what if I fly? Fear says, don't try, you'll be embarrassed. Action says, even if I fall, I'll rise stronger. Fear is loud in silence. But the moment you start stepping forward, taking risks, pushing boundaries, breaking habits, you drown fear out with the sound of your own courage. I'm talking to the person who's been stuck, who's been frozen. You've been waiting for the perfect time, the right plan, the guaranteed outcome. Let me tell you something, that moment doesn't exist. You've been praying for a sign. This is it. You've been asking for clarity. This is it. The only thing standing between you and the life you desire is your willingness to move in the presence of fear. You don't need all the answers. You don't need a perfect strategy. You need a made-up mind. A decision that says, I will no longer let fear make my decisions for me. Because what fear really wants is to negotiate with your destiny. It wants to delay your dream. But action shuts that down. Action says, I'm moving anyway. I may not feel ready, but I'm going. You've got to understand, every legend, every champion, every trailblazer had fear. But what made them different is they moved anyway. They applied for the opportunity anyway. They started the business anyway. They picked up the mic, wrote the book, launched the idea anyway. They didn't let fear be the final voice. They let action take the wheel. And here's the beautiful part. Action builds momentum, and momentum builds confidence. And confidence weakens fear's grip. When you keep showing up, keep pushing forward, something powerful happens inside of you. You stop identifying with your fear, and you start identifying with your faith. You stop living from your history, and you start living from your possibility. You say, but what if I fail? Good. Fail forward. Fail fast. Fail often. Because failure is not the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone to it. You learn in the doing. You grow in the going. You evolve in the effort. You don't become great by playing it safe. You become great by daring to take action, even when your knees are shaking and your voice is trembling. Somebody needs to hear this. You've been running from your calling. You've been making excuses. It's not the right time. I'm not qualified. I'm too old. I'm too young. But deep down, you know that excuse is just fear in disguise. Don't let fear costume itself as logic. Don't let it trick you into living a life that's beneath your potential. When you move, you take your power back. When you act, you become dangerous to the lies that fear has been feeding you. Every step forward is a vote for your future. Every bold decision is an act of defiance against mediocrity. Every time you press forward, fear loses a little more of its hold. You don't need to wait for courage to show up. You create it by moving. You ignite it by choosing action over anxiety. This is your time. This is your moment. Fear may be real, but it's not your ruler. Action is your weapon. Movement is your power. So get up, step out, speak up, move forward. Do it afraid, do it unsure, do it messy. But just do it, because fear only wins when you don't move. But the moment you take that step, you become unstoppable. Every time you look fear in the eyes and refuse to back down, something powerful happens inside you. You gain a new layer of confidence. You gain a deeper sense of clarity. You gain a hidden strand of strength woven into the fabric of your character. It's a quiet transformation, one the world may not notice at first, but you notice it, you feel it, you carry it, because conquering fear doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes you. Think back to the first time you did something that terrified you. Maybe it was speaking in public, launching a business, telling someone how you really felt, quitting a job that was draining your soul. You tremble, your heart raced, and your mind rehearsed every worst-case scenario. But you did it anyway. And the moment you stepped through that doorway of fear, you felt it, a spark of confidence you'd never known before. That spark is proof that fear is fertilizer. Every time you face it, you grow. Confidence isn't handed out, it's earned in moments of courage. It's built in the trenches where you battle your doubts. The irony is that most people wait to feel confident before they act, but confidence only shows up after you act. It's the reward for courage, not the prerequisite. And every fear you conquer adds another brick to that foundation. One brick becomes two become 10. Before long, you're standing on a solid platform of self-belief so strong that the next challenge looks less like a threat and more like an invitation. But the transformation doesn't stop at confidence. Conquering fear also sharpens your clarity. When you refuse to be ruled by what scares you, your priorities snap into focus. You stop wasting emotional bandwidth on what will they think and start asking, what do I think? What do I want? Where am I going next? That clarity is liberating. It cuts through the fog of indecision and reveals the path you couldn't see when fear was blinding you. Suddenly the noise quiets, the options narrow, and your purpose gleams like a lighthouse. You know who you are and why you're here, and that knowledge is priceless. And then there's strength, an inner fortitude forged only in the fires you once tried to avoid. Each time you conquer a fear, you discover you're stronger than you imagined. You realize the fight didn't diminish you, it enlarged you. The weight you lifted yesterday becomes tomorrow's warm-up. What once felt impossible is now your new normal. That strength compounds. It travels into other areas of your life, your work, your relationships, your health, your dreams. You walk taller. You speak bolder. Challenges still come, but they no longer intimidate you the way they used to, because you have evidence inside your own history that you can handle hard things. Now, here's the secret: most people miss these layers. Confidence, clarity, and strength aren't added when the fear leaves. They're added when you move through the fear. If you keep waiting for fear to vanish, you'll wait your life away. Fear is sticky. It clings to every meaningful endeavor. But the very act of stepping forward despite that fear is what triggers your growth. Each conquered fear is a deposit in your personal growth account, earning compound interest with every courageous choice. Imagine stacking these layers year after year. Picture a version of yourself 12 months from now who has leaned into fear a dozen times, made the difficult phone call, pitched the bold idea, walked into the gym anyway, said no when people pleasing wanted to say yes. That person will look back and hardly recognize the timid self who once hesitated at the edge of possibility. Fear will still knock, but your answer will change from panic to power. I've handled scarier than you, step aside. Your story becomes a roadmap for others. Every fear you conquer writes a new chapter of hope into someone else's handbook. They see you doing what frightens you and they think, if they can, maybe I can too. Confidence begets confidence, clarity inspires clarity, strength awakens strength. Your personal victories ripple outward, fueling a domino effect of courage in your family, your team, your community. So the next time fear rises up, whether it's a whisper in your mind or a roar in your chest, pause and remember what's at stake. On the far side of that fear is a richer, stronger, clearer you. The question is not whether fear will show up, it will. The question is whether you'll let it rob you of the next layer of who you could become. Choose to step through, choose to collect that confidence, seize that clarity, claim that strength. Layer by layer, fear falls away, and the real you emerges, unshakable, unstoppable, undeniable. Fear is the great gatekeeper between you and your greatness. Most people tiptoe through life, hoping to make it safely to death. They avoid fear like it's poison, but what they don't realize is that fear is actually the pathway to power. You've got to learn how to use it, how to step into it, not run from it. Because if you're running from fear, you're running from growth. And if you're running from growth, you're running from your destiny. Now listen to me closely. Fear is never going to vanish completely. You're not going to wake up one day and feel totally fearless. That's not how this works. You think the greats didn't feel fear. Of course they did. The difference is they learned how to function in spite of it. They made a decision that what they were running toward mattered more than what they were running from. They decided their vision was bigger than their fear. Let me ask you something. What would your life look like if you stopped giving fear the steering wheel? How many opportunities have slipped through your fingers because you hesitated, because you doubted, because you allowed fear to set the tone? See, fear will give you a script to read from. It'll say, you're not ready. You're not good enough. You'll look foolish. What if they laugh? But courage, courage hands you a different script. Courage says, do it anyway. Go scared, go unsure. But and when you take that first step, everything starts to shift. You got to rewire how you see fear. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is feedback. It's telling you where your next breakthrough lies. It's shining a light on the edge of your comfort zone. That's where the magic is. Not in the familiar, not in the easy, not in the things you've already mastered. The magic lies on the other side of fear, and that's where you need to live. Think of every hero you've ever admired, every success story, every game changer, every voice that moved the world. What do they have in common? They all fought through fear. They didn't wait for perfect timing. They didn't need approval from everybody. They didn't need a 100% guarantee. They moved. They acted. They started. They failed, and they kept going. That's the blueprint. You don't get to skip the fear. You walk through it. And that walk will build you into someone you've never been before. When you master the ability to keep moving through fear, you become dangerous to doubt. You become unshakable in adversity. Because fear no longer paralyzes you. It propels you. You stop asking, what if it doesn't work? And start saying, what if it does? You stop saying, I'm not ready, and start declaring, I'm willing. And that mindset, that relentless, focused, forward-driving mindset becomes your superpower. Look, I'm not telling you to ignore fear. I'm telling you to override it, to retrain your reflexes, to build up your courage muscle. Every time you act in the face of fear, that muscle gets stronger. And eventually, fear shows up, and you just smile, because you remember who you are. You remember what you've already overcome. You remember that everything you want is waiting on the other side. You've got a choice to make today. You can keep playing it safe, keep hiding behind your excuses, keep sitting on your dreams, or you can stand up and say, enough is enough. You can look fear in the eye and say, you've controlled my decisions long enough. You don't get to run the show anymore. You can decide that no matter how afraid you feel, you're going to act anyway. You're going to move forward anyway. You're going to rise anyway. That's how transformation happens. Not when you eliminate fear, but when you outgrow it. When you stop letting it define you. When you stop giving it the power to pause your purpose. You've got a mission. You've got a calling. You've got lives to touch and dreams to fulfill. And fear. Fear is just noise trying to keep you from the music you were born to play. So today, fight through the fear. Not because you're fearless, but because you're ready. Ready to live bold, ready to walk free, ready to rise into the next version of yourself. Fear will knock, but it doesn't get to stay. Not when greatness is calling your name. Fear is the great gatekeeper between you and your greatness. Most people tiptoe through life, hoping to make it safely to death. They avoid fear like it's poison. But what they don't realize is that fear is actually the pathway to power. You've got to learn how to use it, how to step into it, not run from it. Because if you're running from fear, you're running from growth. And if you're running from growth, you're running from your destiny. Now listen to me closely. Fear is never going to vanish completely. You're not going to wake up one day and feel totally fearless. That's not how this works. You think the greats didn't feel fear? Of course they did. The difference is they learned how to function in spite of it. They made a decision that what they were running toward mattered more than what they were running from. They decided their vision was bigger than their fear. Let me ask you something. What would your life look like if you stopped giving fear the steering wheel? How many opportunities have slipped through your fingers because you hesitated, because you doubted, because you allowed fear to set the tone? See, fear will give you a script to read from. It'll say, you're not ready, you're not good enough, you'll look foolish. What if they laugh? But courage, courage hands you a different script, but do it anyway.
Go scared.
But and when you take that first step, everything starts to shift. You've got to rewire how you see fear. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is feedback. It's telling you where your next breakthrough lies. It's shining a light on the edge of your comfort zone. That's where the magic is. Not in the familiar, not in the easy, not in the things you've already mastered. The magic lies on the other side of fear, and that's where you need to live. Think of every hero you've ever admired, every success story, every game changer, every voice that moved the world. What do they have in common? They all fought through fear. They didn't wait for perfect timing. They didn't need approval from everybody. They didn't need a 100% guarantee. They moved. They acted. They spoke. They started, they failed, and they kept going. That's the blueprint. You don't get to skip the fear. You walk through it. And that walk will build you into someone you've never been before. When you master the ability to keep moving through fear, you become dangerous to doubt. You become unshakable in adversity. Because fear no longer paralyzes you. It propels you. You stop asking, what if it doesn't work? And start saying, what if it does? You stop saying, I'm not ready, and start declaring, I'm willing. And that mindset, that relentless, focus forward driving mindset, becomes your superpower. Look, I'm not telling you to ignore fear. I'm telling you to override it, to retrain your reflexes, to build up your courage muscle. Every time you act in the face of fear, that muscle gets stronger. And eventually, fear shows up and you just smile because you remember who you are. You remember what you've already overcome. You remember that everything you want is waiting on the other side. You got a choice to make today. You can keep playing it safe, keep hiding behind your excuses, keep sitting on your dreams. You can stand up and say, enough is enough. You can look fear in the eye and say, you've controlled my decisions long enough. You don't get to run the show anymore. You can decide that no matter how afraid you feel, you're going to act anyway. You're going to move forward anyway. You're going to rise anyway. That's how transformation happens. Not when you eliminate fear, but when you outgrow it. When you stop letting it define you. When you stop giving it the power to pause your purpose. You've got a mission. You've got a calling. You've got lives to touch and dreams to fulfill. And fear is just noise trying to keep you from the music you were born to play. So today, fight through the fear. Not because you're fearless, but because you're ready. Ready to live bold. Ready to walk free. Ready to rise into the next version of yourself. Fear will knock, but it doesn't get to stay. Not when greatness is calling your name.